Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me and this show all over the place: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, at Hawk Blogger, as well as on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where we continue to get some awesome reviews. 5-star reviews make me super happy. And guess what? Finn is getting a special treatment today. He's getting a chance to join the show for a second straight show by popular demand. So welcome Finn Nemhauser to the show as well, special guest. And thank you to Xfinity Comcast for getting our internet working. It was, I'll tell you what, I get pretty ornery without internet. I didn't realize that until we lost it today, but the whole Nemhauser household was not doing so well this morning when we also live in a cell dead zone. So when we lose the internet, we lose everything. And we lost TV. It was bad. It was bad. I mean, we had to actually talk to each other, look at each other. It was a rough there for a bit, but we're back. We're back, and let's hope that it stays up long enough for at least for me to get this show in. And congratulations to everybody, man. Like, Seahawks are 9-3. Seahawks are 9-3. Let's go. Like, the Seahawks are 9-3. Guess who else is 9-3? The Los Angeles Rams are 9-3 because they blew a game against the Panthers. Honestly, they didn't really blow it. The Panthers just beat them, like straight beat them. Like, there was kind of an interesting thing there. If you watch that game at all, everyone's like, "Oh man, did the Vikings give everybody a blueprint for how to beat the Seahawks offense?" Got some fun sound to play for you on that from Mike Macdonald, which matches my read as well. But meanwhile, is anyone asking if the Panthers came up with a blueprint for beating the Rams? Because I think what they did is far more transferable. If you look at what the Panthers did, they overpowered the Rams on the ground. They ran the ball effectively. They had a few explosive plays, not a ton, but enough. And then defensively, they were able to hold up pretty well against the run, and they took advantage of the turnovers that Matt Stafford, believe it or not, does have a tendency to give you an opportunity to get. And they made the catches. They made the plays. So most importantly to me in that game was a team that can run the ball effectively on the Rams really puts them in a challenging spot because they are just built to be a NASCAR, a race car, I guess is the best way to put it. They want to get after the passer. They want to get exotic with their coverages. But if you're talking about 2nd down and 2, you can get as exotic as you want. They're just going to run it over you or have an easier pass. And in that game, Panthers stayed ahead of the sticks quite a bit. I didn't actually get a chance to look at some of the final numbers. I just watched the game. But if we look at that game, trust me, we're going to talk about the Seahawks as well. But this was a pretty big outcome. The Panthers put up 358 yards of offense, 164 yards on the ground. That is the second highest rushing total against the Rams all year. They only passed for 194 yards, but they didn't turn the ball over. And I'll tell you what, like, the Seahawks put up the most. Did you know this? Did you know that the Seahawks put up the most yards against the Rams defense of any offense in the NFL this year? The 414 yards that the Seahawks put up against the Rams is more than any other offense has done against that Rams defense. I didn't know that till I just looked it up. The Panthers only put up 358 yards, which is not bad, but it's not great, but they didn't turn the ball over. Meanwhile, the Rams did 3 turnovers. They did rush the ball relatively well. They had 152 yards on the ground, so it wasn't terrible there at any in any regard. But yeah, the Panthers, when they got their chances, they scored touchdowns, not field goals, and they didn't turn the ball over. So I think there's something to it with running the ball against this Rams team. There was pretty good stuff on the Mike Macdonald show this morning on Seattle Sports Radio. So I'm going to play you some sound from that that I think is relevant to this. And in fact, why don't we get right to it? Because one of the things that I heard from a lot of folks after this game was, or even during this game, is, did Brian Flores just showcase like this secret for stopping the Seahawks offense? This was a question that Brock had asked Mike Macdonald about, just generally speaking. What did you make of the offensive performance? You'll hear a little bit in here regarding the Brian Flores thing. Then there's another sound. It's a lot longer, but it's really, really interesting from Mike Macdonald as well. But let's listen to him assess the offense's performance from yesterday, and then I've got something to add.
Yeah, I think, a lot of things we're going to learn from it. I haven't talked to our offensive staff yet. So we'll come up with some more, specifics as we go here. But, we obviously didn't start as fast as we wanted to. I felt like maybe they were ahead of us in terms of dictating terms at the beginning of the game. So that's not like a huge positive on our end. Now, I mean, I did think that the offense did a great job of figuring out ways to get the ball moving forward and sustaining drives really more consistently than we have at some parts throughout the season, which doesn't really go noticed. Now, we need to finish those drives better. Those are finishing with field goals. But there were, I think we only had 1 3 and out. We scored on a lot of our possessions, which is a positive. And the other thing is you talk about the resolve and the relentlessness of our team. We didn't back down, and we didn't abandon the run game. We knew we needed to stick to that. I think our coaches did a great job at halftime figuring out some protections that we could handle better, getting the answers to those things, finding more things in the run game that we could hang our hat on in the second half based off of the looks that they were giving us. And so those are all there's a lot of really good stuff. Mm-hmm. And you look at the stats, and it's not like a great offensive game, but there's also some of the looks and some of the matches and some of the things that they do, which is pretty unique to them compared to the rest of the league. Those are things we're going to have to be aware of and have answers for moving forward, for sure. But it's also like some of the things that they do is just, it's hard for a team to just say, hey, like, we're going to just abandon all the things we've invested in over the last 7 months, and we're just going to copy. We're just going to be the Minnesota Vikings. Like that's what makes them such a good defense, is that that's what they do, and they're really good at it. And we did some good things against them. You got to give them a lot of credit. But it's something that when you don't see it that often, I think we can have a better plan moving forward.
A lot of good stuff in there from Coach Macdonald, and the end there was the part that I walked away with, where I want to be self-aware here. So everyone after the Cardinals game, when the Seahawks won by 22 points, and in the second half, it was ugly, and they turned the ball over a bunch. And I was pretty dismissive about the fact that I thought those were, a fumbled snap. That doesn't feel like a Sam Darnold is a turnover problem. A pass that goes off a helmet doesn't feel like that's a Sam Darnold's a turnover problem thing. But then the next game, he throws four turnovers. Yes, it is a problem that is showing up in different ways. So I don't want to be completely dismissive about the fact that the Vikings did some things that could cause problems for the Seahawks. At the same time, teams have identities. Even the ones that don't really have a very clear one, they have a offensive and a defensive philosophy that they are trying to coach to, play to, match players to. And you can't just completely transform because you see some other team do something that works and you're like, let's do that. And I think that the Minnesota Vikings are probably one of the most unique defensive schemes and philosophies and play callers in the NFL. And the reality there is, I just don't think there's going to be a lot of teams that just can roll that out. The same way I feel about what the Rams did to the Seahawks. There's not a lot of teams that can play dime the way, throw 6 defensive backs out on the field the way the Rams did, and be able to still defend the run pretty well. That's not easy to do. And the disguises that they put in place are somewhat unique to them. So to say, oh, the Rams have now exposed them and there's this way that everyone else can do, I don't think so. And the nice thing is with the Vikings, you're not going to see the Vikings again this year or in the playoffs, and you're not going to see a defense, honestly, that is that similar. Although I will say that they're going to get a chance this week against the Falcons, who are one of the other highest blitzing teams, to kind of test out if they've made some improvements there. But that aside, generally speaking, I agree with what the coach said here about, you know what, this isn't something you're going to see week in, week out. But he didn't dodge the fact that, yeah, you still want to, there's some things to learn and to take away from in this one. One of the things that he said as well is that the team scored on a number of their possessions and they stuck with the game plan. They knew they had to run and they kept running it. And I thought that that was a positive as well. One thing that you may not know about the Seahawks offense, they score on 46% of their drives. That ranks 4th in the NFL. So it's not just a matter of points per drive. It's a matter of how often their drives result in points, a score of some sort. And that's isolated to just offense, right? That's not if the defense scores or anything like that. The Seahawks offense is 4th in the NFL in having their drive turn into points. I think that's a pretty telling statistic that, again, people are like, oh man, I'm glad we didn't play the Texans now. They look pretty good. The Texans defense was pretty good when the Seahawks played them, and the Seahawks undressed them quite a bit. Like, they put up 27 points with a interception thrown by Cooper Kupp and a missed field goal. And the turnovers that, the stuff that happened with Sam Darnold in that game. They could have easily scored more than 30 points against that Texans defense. I don't think the Vikings defense is better than the Texans defense. I think it's different. I don't think it's better. And so this offense is not just necessarily, played well against bad defenses. I think they've excelled in some cases against really good defense. They've just had some rough games in the last few weeks against some ones that are I think, telling. For what it's worth, if you're curious, the Seahawks defense ranks 2nd in the NFL in percentage of their drives, of opponent drives that turn into points. Only 27.6% of opponent drives turn into points. So we have an offense that's scoring basically every other possession and a defense that is holding opponents to scoring on only 1 out of every 4 possessions. That's how you get to the number 1 point differential team in the NFL. That's what the Seahawks are after, what is it now? 13 weeks, right? And this is not an easy division. This is the first time in the history of the NFC West that 3 teams have 9 wins after week 13. Like Rams, 49ers, Seahawks, all sitting there at 9 wins. The 49ers have 4 losses. They will get their bye week this week, which will, probably, it's always good to have it come. I think the 49ers would have loved to have had it come earlier, but they'll get their rest and then they're going to have their stretch run and they're going to feel good about their chances, as good as anybody else. So a lot of competition left. There's another part of this from Coach Macdonald that I wanted to play. This one is a little long, I will say, but I just really loved his answer. And the question was from Brock Heward, why don't more teams play the way Brian Flores' Vikings defense play? Like, what makes it unique? Now, Mike kind of answers that question, but he goes into a really interesting conversation or thought process here that about how you establish a good defense, a good philosophy. And so I want to play that for you guys. Let me kind of tee it up to where Coach is ready to talk. I think Brock's going to still be talking, but we'll get to Coach in a second.
101, why don't more people do what Minnesota does defensively? Get up in the gaps, force calls, force line of scrimmage mechanics, really, just bring kind of, I don't even want to say exotic looks, but just from a football 101, why do you think the league the others don't do as much as Minnesota really majors in that?
Well, I think that, it's in the details. And, Flo is a guy that it's his system that he's honed for a long time. And
Flo,
there's not a lot of other people that have all those mechanisms at their disposal, and their players deserve a lot of credit too. They got a lot of smart players back there that are in premium calls and moving around. And I think when you just in general, general football terms speaking, I think to be the most effective, you have to have your version of your vision of your side of the ball, of your system that you're trying to create, and you have to, the principles of that you have to make to come to life, and then how you get it done is based off of like your personal philosophies, the people on your team, all those things that kind of like the little inputs and the tweaks that you can do, so like I feel like we have we've generated a very strong like vision of who we want to be in each three phases on our team. It's clear that Flo has a very clear vision about how he wants to operate his defense, and so all those details now are really crystallized, and they've had a lot of time to make that thing come to life with all the different like levers that they can pull all the time. You really can go to any great offense, defense, special teams unit in the league, and I can point to you a system that is very clear on who they want to be identity-wise, and it's a very clear vision about how they want to be, and that's what you respect as a coach. People that kind of just pull plays and, hey, this play's cool and this play's cool and that play's cool, and this play worked against them, but so let's run this play. This play worked against these guys. Well, you just lost my respect. All you did was just pull a play that happened to work against a certain team. And because it worked, let's just run this play. It worked. Well, you have no idea on why did the play work. Okay, there's a really good chance that they just screwed it up. And guess what? They have tape too, and they're allowed to practice. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to actually work on that play over the course of, So it's like that just blows my mind that teams operate like that. This is not even answering your question, but I'm just going on a thing here because it's just like that's not how you win. That's not how you generate culture. It's not how you build systems. It's just totally against what we believe here in chasing edges. Sorry, there you go.
I loved that. I mean, I thought that you got Mike a little worked up on that one, and that last bit about you lose my respect when you just pull a play. I think what he's getting at there, and I'm not positive, but I think what he's getting at there is this notion that, okay, someone ran this play that worked against another team. We're going to now try that. We're going to insert that into, we're going to install that on our defense, and we're going to run that against you the next time. I think he's basically saying, well, that's idiotic. You have no idea exactly why it worked or the principles behind it or how it was practiced or how the details required for it to work in the first place. It might have just been that the other team blew something on their side, and that's why it worked. And additionally, you're kind of just, going against the notion of all the things that you've already installed and the principles to kind of get your style to be expressed and to work and to be connected. Plus, the other point he's making there is, guess what? The team that had that play work against them, they can practice too, and they're probably figuring out why they didn't succeed against that play. And so if you just throw the play out there without the actual underlying scheme and principles and practice time and reps to figure out how to do it well, you're just out there guessing essentially. And that's not a foundation that can be repeated and applied over and over and over again. So I thought that was really interesting from Coach this morning. And he doesn't often kind of let you into like, how does his mind work? But I think that was a good insight into it. I see we've already got some super chats. Want to get to those. We also got some injury updates on Julian Love that I'll get from Coach in here in a second. Talk about those. Let's get to a couple super chats here. Landon Howell says, in Anthony Bradford's performance, just the casualty of having an off day against a stellar defensive scheme. I'll say this. I still have not gone back and watched every snap, so I can't really comment on the specifics. I know I saw the replay of the missed block on the running play near the goal line where the Vikings sent a blitzer off the offense's left edge. I saw the blitz where Bradford went out and the blitzer came in through his gap, and so I know those plays, so I know what people are upset about. I did find it interesting that PFF came out with their grades, and Anthony Bradford did not have a good grade. He did not have a good grade. He had a 47. Let me make sure I got this one right. He has a 47.3 grade in this game. And Christian Haynes, who came in for him, had a 42.9 grade in this game. So, and by the way, like it or not, which I'm guessing most of you will not, PFF gave Anthony Bradford an 80.2 pass block grade. That is a Pro Bowl level pass block grade. So he had a really bad run blocking grade. Christian Haynes had a 76.2 pass blocking grade. So PFF grades are not the end all be all, but everyone's thrilled to post Anthony Bradford's terrible PFF grades when it serves their purpose. When he has a good one or something that doesn't meet the narrative, then people are like, well, PFF sucks, I'll ignore the grade. I'll tell you this over and over and over again. I know I've got this reputation as the Anthony Bradford biggest fan. I do like Anthony. I wish him the best. If Christian Haynes is a better player and he can come in and be an upgrade, I'm all for it. Like, zero hesitation. Get him in there. Let's make the Seahawks better. I will always, always want that. Full stop. I've got nothing against Christian Haynes. I got nothing against Bryce Cabledew or Mason Richmond or anyone else, Jalen Sundell, that could come in. Like, if they can come in and do it, awesome. Let's talk about it. But in fact, there is an Anthony Bradford conversation in this with Mike Macdonald. Let's play that because Mike Salk asked the coach about right guard, and here is that moment.
At it, and we did some
in the offseason at right guard, and obviously Anthony Bradford won. I'm not going to pretend like I really understand any of the details of interior line play. I can only see what they show us on TV and what some of the commentators say and what the film people on the internet say later. They don't paint a particularly pretty picture for what you've gotten from the right guard. How can that position improve? Is there the possibility of more competition here towards the end of the year? Where do you go at that spot?
Well, I think we just got to keep doubling down on our fundamentals and the things that AB's doing some good things. He really is. I mean, there's some really good plays on there, and there's some not so good plays. And I think some of those plays that show up are kind of like quick losses, maybe, and we can finish those plays better. So let's keep doubling down on the fundamentals. Now we have some guys like Christian came in yesterday and did a good job when AB went out. Jalen Sundell is coming back here in the next couple of weeks. Maybe there's some combinations there that we can look at, but there's going to be everyone's always in competition. Now, I mean, like Charles doesn't feel like, but Charles does that every day. Charles is he wins his left tackle job every day. That's what he does. Gray wins the left guard job every day. AB's been winning the right guard job when he's been in there, and so I can take it to the whole roster. So, but everybody's under scrutiny and is in a competition for their shoot. I am, I'm competing to be the head coach every day. And so, sometimes when we fall short, there's going to be some competitions that open based on guys' performance. And we're always going to be thinking through that lens.
So, I mean, that's exactly where my head's at on this. And I was glad the coach brought up Jalen Sundell. That was a little sneaky thing that he doesn't usually talk about, people that are not quite ready to come back. But the fact that he's like, we're maybe a few weeks away from getting Jalen Sundell back is good news, by the way, just independent of this Anthony Bradford stuff. But that he kind of hinted that there might be an opportunity for them to look at Oluwatimi staying at center and Jalen Sundell moving to guard. I have no problems with the team looking to try to improve there. The problem that I have is when people basically just look at the worst plays that a player makes, jumps on a freight train, which is everyone across the NFL content creation world has found out that Anthony Bradford is a whipping post. And if you put up his bad plays, you are going to get viral engagement. Everyone's going to laugh. Everyone's going to be on your side. That's bullshit. That's just bad analysis. If you go through and you watch every snap and you're like, okay, here's what he's doing and here's what he's not, I'll listen and I'll actually do that myself. Every time I've watched, like including 0.0 graded games from Anthony Bradford, every time I've watched a full game of his this year, it's just not as bad as what everyone says it is. If it was, I would tell you, yeah, like it's that bad. It's not. It has not been. I've not watched this game with all 22. I will go back. I'll take another look, share my perspective. But I will tell you exactly what I see. And I think what people want me to say is, you're right. He's the worst player on the planet. We've got to put anybody else in there. I just don't think there's not the evidence. That's an emotional reaction. That is not an actual evidence-based thing. And it's not just me. Brian Baldinger came on here, told you about Anthony Bradford. Brandon Thorne talked about and showed where he was doing things that are really positive. We've had other people come on here and talk about that without my prompting. So anyway, I just encourage folks to have a Seahawks first mentality as opposed to an, let's nail Anthony Bradford philosophy. All right. Eric Tam says the week 13 QB performances might be fun to dig into. Sam's performance looks surprisingly good compared to the sad QB play we saw this week. Funny enough, there's this perfect quarterback that never does anything wrong and lives in Los Angeles and is the belle of the ball and already got the MVP wrapped up. He had 3 turnovers. He had 3 turnovers in that game, including some ugly ones, including a pick six, including one that bounced off a player's helmet. Seen that before. And including a strip sack that cost his team the game at the end. So, yeah, like the 4 turnovers Sam Darnold had were awful. The 3 turnovers were not that far off, and they both cost their team a game. So, yeah, there was some pretty bad quarterback play. The Broncos, who are, I think they're 10-2 now, they barely were able to beat the Commanders last night in overtime. That's the same Commanders team the Seahawks walloped. In fact, they had Marcus Mariota at quarterback, where the Seahawks went up against Jaden Daniels. So I don't know, man. I don't think this was a great game for Sam Darnold, but I also agree with the coach in the sense that there were some good sacks that he took. If you can say that. If Sam Darnold had taken 4 sacks against the Rams, they probably win that game. The Seahawks probably win that game. So sacks are not the thing that are going to always lose a game. Turnovers most often will. So in that sense, the fact that Seahawks gave up 4 sacks in the first half, no sacks in the second half, and only had 1 offensive turnover, I think is good news. I wish they had 0 offensive turnovers, but this was back-to-back games without an interception from Sam Darnold. You got to start somewhere. And I think this was a style of game where the Seahawks were able to lean on a really good defense, really good special teams. I thought Jason Myers had maybe his best game as a Seahawk. 2 54-yard plus field goals. Both of those were critical. Both of those, if you don't make those, the Vikings get the ball at midfield and maybe things look different. I thought the special teams, the defense carried the day. And when I went back and looked at some of the best teams in Seahawks history, and when they've played against, like when they've had these big advantages, it's amazing. Like the last time they shut out a team was the Bears in 2015, 26-0, same score. There was only 1 offensive touchdown in that game. The other touchdown was a 105-yard Tyler Lockett kickoff return. Richard Sherman had a 65-yard punt return in that game. That wasn't for a touchdown, but it was a big return. And they had 1 offensive touchdown, a touchdown pass to Jimmy Graham. And they just kind of like found their way against Jimmy Clausen and the Bears. And I went back. I found games where they lost to Colt McCoy, where they lost to Case Keenum, where they lost to Austin Davis. And so I'm just never going to look at a game where you win 26-0 and diminish it and say, well, look who you were facing, or the offense didn't do this perfectly, or JSN didn't have enough yards, or Sam Darnold didn't. Some of those things matter. the thing that really matters is that you won 26-0 and you move on to the next week. That's what matters the most. So, I'll get into some of the things I'm being a little bit less. I'm giving a little less credence to because I think they do deserve some attention. But that's generally how I exited yesterday. 12 for life became a YouTube member. Well, happy to have you. Good to have you. I think you have been a member for a long time. In fact, here is a super chat. You've been a member for 10 months, it looks like. So maybe you upgraded. Maybe that's what happened. It doesn't really show me. It says, Schneider is not MacGyver. He's a pope. Infallible. I think this is probably in reference to my MacGyver or MacGruber offseason. That was how I described this offseason for John Schneider. Either he was going to look like MacGyver and like diffuse what was like a massive bomb with Geno Smith wanting out and DK Metcalf wanting out and having to change over the offensive coaching staff and all this stuff. Or he was going to be MacGruber and he was going to blow everything up, and including himself. So far, not only has he been MacGyver, he is, I think, been the executive of the year. And I wrote an article about offensive line and what some different teams did in roster construction this year on the offensive line. Ironically, I published it before this game where they gave up like a ton of pressure. But for my money, the Seahawks did one of the best jobs in this offseason in terms of addressing their offensive line play. I'll probably spend some time probably later this week going over that article. I think it's worth kind of going over some of the research I found in there and sharing it with all of you. But at least going into this game last week, the Seahawks had improved more in pass block win rate and run block win rate combined than any other offensive line in the NFL, while being the second cheapest and the third youngest starting group. That's pretty heady stuff. It's pretty heady stuff. So, great stuff from John Schneider, and hopefully some trophies coming down his way beyond just a Lombardi if they can get that. Steve Neckholt says, what Carolina-related charities should Hawks fans donate to? We owe them for beating the Lambs. I love this question. I was talking about this yesterday. Yeah. What do we want to do? I mean, I'm all for food banks right now. That's kind of a nice one. Let me do a little research. And they're in Charlotte, right? I've got a couple places that are kind of already coming up. Salvation Army's up there. Second Harvest. Yeah, there's a few. I'll find one and I will try to share that. Help me remember if I don't, but I love that idea. Let's get that going. Let's get that going for sure. All right. And then OEL says, I liked Kubiak having Darnold throw the ball to AJ Barner often. Yeah, I think part of the adjustments, one of the things I liked about this game, and I feel like I'm just screaming into the wind. Maybe I'm the only one that liked this game, but part of what I liked about this game is we got a chance to see them have to adjust. The Seahawks have been such fast starters. They've been ahead so often against so many teams and comfortably ahead and the offense has been a big part of that. They haven't really had to make a lot of adjustments. This was a time where the offense was really struggling, and they were struggling in pass protection. They were that has not been an issue this year. And one of the things they did was more screens, more running, and they involved the tight end over the middle on some of those screens. And a lot of that stuff, worked is a little bit strong, but it was better. It was an improvement over what was happening in the first half. Like I said, there was no sacks in the second half. So, and the offense didn't turn the ball over. And let's double check, but I think they scored on most of their possessions in that second half. They scored on their first 2 possessions. They scored on 3 out of their first 4 possessions in the second half. I think that's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. All right. Okay. Let's get to some other stuff here. We've got some more sound from Mike Macdonald. Last thing we're going to play is about injury update. So it's Ernest Jones, Sam Darnold, Anthony Bradford, Josh Jobe. I think all those guys sound like they're doing okay based on what Mike Macdonald said. But then Mike Macdonald gave an update on Julian Love, and here's what he said there.
Probably just a little sore. Sam had a little bit of an ankle. He should be good to go. Yeah.
You can see Julian this week?
I'm gonna hope that we do. Yeah. I mean, looking positive. He's got to take it day by day. But look, nobody wants him more out there more than I do. Trust me. I mean, we love our guy, but like, and I know Julian. This guy he's. Let me just take this up. Julian he has worked extremely hard and incredibly diligently to get himself back out there. This is not a function of him not being like ready to go or not doing all the things. I mean, he's taking it to the nth degree to come back and be as healthy as he possibly can. And our trainers are doing the same thing. It's one of those funky things that sometimes these things don't go your way and the timelines change.
So again, we'll find out more from Coach Macdonald later today. He does his afternoon press conference with us, so I'll be at the VMAC and talk to Coach about some of this stuff. But relatively good news, and man, I'm going to keep repeating it because it's something I'm looking forward to. We have not as good as the Seahawks defense is, number 1 overall DVOA defense. I told you number 2 defense in the NFL in terms of percentage of drives that turn into points. Or opponent drives that turn into points. We've only had 4 snaps from the starting secondary. Julian Love has missed most of this season. And I want to see this defense with Julian Love a part of it. There was a time where I think we weren't sure. I wasn't sure if this defense could survive without Julian Love. I thought he was that crucial to the way that secondary operated. The fact that Ty Okada has come in and played the way he's played, it's a credit to him. It's a credit to the coaching staff. That does not mean Julian Love does not have a lot to add to this defense. And then, I mean, Ernest Jones was another guy that I wasn't sure this team could handle his absence. They did manage to handle it, but my God, can you tell the difference when he's there? He's a perfect example of, yeah, you can win games. And yes, you can be very good without him, which is awesome. But boy, when he's out there, it's a different type of deal. So, all these guys, I think there's been a number of these guys. DeMarcus Lawrence, how big was his absence in that Tampa Bay game in retrospect? I mean, the Seahawks have had 1 game all year where they allowed more than 24 points. And that was that Tampa Bay game where they were missing DeMarcus Lawrence, Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, Julian Love. It was all sorts of things going wrong in that game. And so the kind of calculus you end up with when you look at this team is basically if you take away that Tampa Bay game, the Seahawks defense has allowed 16 points per game. I think that's an actual better representation of what kind of defense this is. 16 points per game. You need your offense to score about 20 points a game to win with this defense. And part of what's going on now is how many different styles of offense can you play to get to the points needed to win the game? And for most of the season, they've just been able to be a 12 personnel, explosive early down passing team, off play action, and just burning the hell out of teams. Now there's some teams kind of figuring out ways to make that harder or take that away more often. Now you need the run game to come up. And good news, the run game has been making progress. Over the last 4 weeks, the Seahawks are 4th in the NFL in rushing yards. They are, I believe, 4th in the NFL in number of explosive rushes of 10 or more yards. I can actually pull up. I'm guessing it's not going to be as pretty, but we'll look at like rush success rate and rush EPA over the last 4 weeks. And let's see what we get. So week 10 on, and we're going to look at offense. And I will tell you what we find on rush EPA and rush success rate. Okay. It won't be as rosy, but it'll be. Seahawks are 9th in the NFL in the last 4 weeks in rushing success rate. They are a top 10 rushing team from a success rate perspective over the last. That's a lot higher than I expected, to be honest. From a rush EPA perspective, they're 10th. So all of a sudden, this is very quietly happening. The Seahawks have gone from one of the worst rushing teams in football from an efficiency perspective to a top 10 rushing efficiency team. That's progress. I know it doesn't feel like they're just dominating on the ground, but it's coming. Like, I think people forgot. If you went back and you watched earlier games in this season where you're talking about Ken Walker averaging 1.4 yards a carry or Zach Charbonnet averaging 0.8 yards per carry because they were just getting nothing, it's different now. The amount of 0-yard runs, the stuff rate, actually, I'm going to pull that up. I'm curious now. I'm curious. I'm going to pull up the percentage of runs that have been stuffed, which is 0 or negative yards. And we're going to look at it week by week. All right. And if we do this, we're going to go week by week. We're going to look at just the Seahawks. And we are going to look at rushing offense and stuffed rate. Okay. Oh my God. No way. Is this really? It almost reads like week 1 through 13. Not quite. But let's do this. I'm going to say over the first 4 weeks of the season, 26.9% stuffed rate, meaning that 27% of their runs went for 0 yards or negative. Against the Steelers, 31%. Saints, it dropped down to 21%. The Saints kind of suck, but okay. Against the Cardinals, 25.7, so 26%. So all of those, 3 out of those 4, when they played a decent opponent, they were getting stuffed at 26, 27, 31%. Let's skip ahead. Against the Texans, 18.2%. That's pretty good. Against the Cardinals the next time. So that's an apples to apples, like Cardinals to Cardinals. They went from 26% stuffed rate the first time to 19% the next time. Under 20%. That's pretty good. Against the Rams, this one's fascinating. I did not know this. That was their season low stuffed rate, or season best, if you want to look at it that way. Only 5.7% of their rushes went for 0 or negative yards against the Rams. I think that's something to keep an eye on, given how Carolina just showed you how important the run game is to beating that team. Then against the Titans, a 15% stuffed rate, also very good. And against the Vikings, a 21% stuffed rate. So that's another way to look at the progress of this run game in terms of being able to find ways to be productive on offense, even if it's not quite as efficient or, as valuable necessarily as a explosive passing game. The explosive passing game didn't go away. And think about this. If you go back to the last 2 NFC championships, I wrote about this in my morning after column on hawkblogger.com. If you go back to the last 2 NFC championship games the Seahawks played in, was it a dominant offensive performance that won those games? It wasn't. In fact, the offense really struggled against the 49ers in the first half. The Seahawks were losing in that game. Remember, the first play of the game was a strip sack of Russell Wilson, right? In that game. I mean, it was bad to start that game. Then what did they do? They brought in Alvin Bailey. They went heavy in the second half, and they just mashed him on the ground. And then there was a big fourth down explosive play to Jermaine Kearse to take the lead. That's the style that works in those situations. Like when it gets really gritty during the playoffs, and it will, you need to be able to have a run game that you lean on, and you need to be able to have an explosive pass game. It's a little bit like the baseball playoffs where explosive passing is like being a home run hitting team. It's so hard to gain yards that if you have an explosive element to your offense, that is very valuable in the playoffs. Even if it becomes less frequent, the fact that you've got that in your quiver, so to speak, to use is really valuable. And so that's that game. Look at the next NFC Championship game when they played the Packers. That was an absolute disaster on offense. Russell Wilson turned it over all over the place. He couldn't do anything right. He was getting pressured. It was terrible, right? Then what happened? A non-offensive touchdown. John Ryan throws a touchdown to Gary Gilliam, right? Then you get some turnovers on defense. And then you get some running plays to work. You get something to hit. And all of a sudden, then you get another special teams play on an onside kick. Like, you needed all these other elements of your football team to contribute in order for then the offense to finish the job. And ultimately, explosive pass to Jermaine Kearse in overtime to send you to the Super Bowl. So I have all those things running through my head of, does this team have what you need to kind of be able to win in a variety of ways, in a variety of game scripts against different types of teams? And that's why I liked this game yesterday, because if you have a game where your offense is just clicking, those are not the hardest games to win. When your offense is getting like beat down and you have to rely on the non-scoring parts of your team to lift up your offense to where they can win the game ultimately, those are the games that to me are really indicative of what you're going to need to do in a playoff situation. Because points are going to come at a premium. One other little like rant I have, and I'll get back to some of the stuff that you guys have. I want to get some of your questions and your comments because you guys have some great stuff in chat right now. Is it kind of hit me today. I was thinking about that. I'm not like certain that the Seahawks are the best team in football or certain that this team's going to win a Super Bowl. I'm not blind to the flaws that are on this team that have the potential to be fatal flaws that cause them to lose in the playoffs, have a short life in the playoffs. I see all of it. I do. I honestly do. But I used to be a fan for a long time, until probably a couple of years ago even, where all I cared about was winning a Super Bowl. And the fact of the matter is, that's still my measure of success, like, is winning a Super Bowl. But increasingly, I think maybe part of it's this show and spending time with all of you and doing this every single day, I just want a team that I like. I want a team that I enjoy rooting for, enjoy watching, that I find entertaining. And my God, this team qualifies like on all levels. The guys are likable. The coaches are likable. The scheme that they play is fun to watch. They are tough. They are gritty. They are badass, but also good people. Like, Ernest Jones is such a perfect encapsulation of this team. Absolute badass football player. Absolute fantastic leader who's got his teammates' backs. And also a really good guy. Like, really smart, articulate, loves his family, like, had his first kid, like, all these things. Like, that's the kind of team this is. And of course, them winning a Super Bowl would be the best part. But what a shame it would be if you went through a whole season like this and all you were doing was scrutinizing all the problems with the team because, man, they might not be good enough to win a Super Bowl. For me, I'm really happy to be on the side where I'm just like, I love this team. I love watching them. I love cheering for them. I love talking to them. I love learning more about them. And I'm learning more about football from Mike Macdonald, from Clint Kubiak, from Adam Dirty, from the players. And I'm here for it. Like, I'm here for it the rest of this year. Every single week is a bit of a gift that we get to watch good Seahawks football, because my God, we have seen a lot of really bad Seahawks football, or at least really mediocre Seahawks football, for a decade plus. So I hope you're not missing out. I hope you're not too critical to where you can't enjoy what you're getting to see. Got some more good stuff to get to here. Before we do that, guys, there's this sleep mask that I wear that helps me get a ton of sleep. I want to make sure you guys know all about it as we're heading towards all the great time to buy gifts. This is a good one for your loved one, for yourself. Check it out. Hey, folks. I'm guessing you can see me, but I cannot see you because I am wearing the best sleep mask out there on the market, the Manta sleep mask. It is 100% blackout. I cannot see a thing. And one of the cool things with this model, this is the Manta Sound Sleep Mask. It's got these really cool Bluetooth speakers that adjust right over your ears, connects to your phone. You can play music, you can play white noise, whatever you like. There could be a 49ers fan right next to you. Doesn't matter. And let's face it, sometimes during the football season, you just need to recover. You need to take a nap. You need to block out the world. The Manta Sleep Mask is the best thing to do it. And if you use my code HAWKS, you will get 10% off your purchase over at Manta Sleep. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't look at other sleep masks. Manta Sleep is the best. Buy it. You won't regret it. Love my Manta Sleep Mask. Wore it last night. Slept like a baby, which doesn't happen that often, but after a 26-0 win, certainly did. Also, heading over to SimplySeattle.com. Use my code HawkBlogger15 and you will get an amazing deal. Right now, 25% off through today. I think it ends today. So use code HawkBlogger15 for 25% off. I know it says 15 on the screen, but it's 25 right now. Take advantage of that. Get all your Seahawks gear, your lucky stuff for the rest of the year. Now's the time to do it. And we've got something cool coming tomorrow. I can't wait to tell you about that starting tomorrow. JKBoots.com/HawkBlogger, the best place to get the best deal on the best boots you'll ever own. I love my JK boots. I think I'm probably going to wear them later today. We'll see. You got to put that whole thing into your URL, into your browser. JKBoots.com/HawkBlogger will get you your own special promo code so you can get your great deal. You won't need orthotics or arch support or anything because it's got it all built in. These are handmade over 8 weeks. Fantastic. They're an amazing product. I highly, highly recommend them. And then obviously grab the Sleeper app. It's a great place to get all your fantasy football information, get your NBA information, whatever your favorite sports are, to hang out with your friends. And if you use right now, you can get $20 without making a deposit. And if you use promo code HAWKS, you get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Okay. Let's get back to some of the super chats. There's a couple more in here. So let's go with this. OEL says, I like that Macdonald acknowledged that Sam took some good sacks. I'm with you, OEL. I feel the same way. I would rather him not get sacked. I think we all agree on that. But I certainly would take a sack over the hero ball, throwing it away, getting sped up, and making bad choices. I would like him to secure the football a little bit more. Sacks should not turn into fumbles as often as they do with Sam, and so far they have. Mike Newell has become a member. Welcome, Mike. Glad to have you as part of the crew. OEL back with another one here. This game reminded me of what the OG vision of this team with Darnold would look like. Him not messing things up while the team leans on defense and running backs. Yeah, that was my vision coming into the year. I thought this had to be a top 10 rushing offense for the Seahawks to be a quality, contending team. Based on what we just talked about over the last 4 weeks, they are a top 10 rushing offense now, either by efficiency or by yardage. That's good news. And we already now know that Sam Darnold and JSN and others are capable of even more. All right, Good Vibes says, what do you think about us signing Adam Thielen after getting released today? I know we want Horton back ASAP, but could he be of any help at 35? No. How many more no's can I add? No. I appreciate the super chat, but Rashid Shaheed is a great player. Everyone can react however they want. I am completely fine with how things are going with Rashid Shaheed. I'm completely fine with how things are going with Rashid Shaheed. I have no doubts about how good he is. I have no doubts about his fit in this offense. Cooper Kupp had a fine game yesterday, made some important plays. Torrey Horton is going to come back. He'll be an additive player. Cody White is doing well when he's given the opportunity. We don't need an old receiver added to this group. That's not going to be the thing that changes anything. And as I said, when Rashid Shaheed was acquired, I mean, the amount of targets that even is the difference between the number 1 and number 2 receiver on this team is massive. You go from the number 2 receiver to the number 3, it's even bigger. So it's just not a team that spreads the ball around that much yet. And I think you'll see a little bit more of that over the last part of the season. I don't think Adam Thielen is what's going to be the thing that unlocks anything. Like, I think it's going to be Rashid Shaheed is going to pop at some point and people are going to be like, oh yeah, this is why we got him. Yeah, that's my take there. All right. There were some other things in chat here I wanted to at least speak to. I'm going to give you PFF grades here in a second for people that have not seen it. Yes, Drake Thomas love. I have to put this up here from Saigon86, who's a member. Love you, Saigon. Drake Thomas being a human torpedo. Big Cat being an ultimate trench warrior. There's so many players with fun narratives on this team. Amen, man. Like, let's take that opportunity to do a little bit of Drake Thomas exploration. I haven't had a chance to do this yet. I am eager to see. Like, Eric Wilson was leading all off-ball linebackers in tackles for loss going into yesterday, and then he had 4 more. So he's got 14 on the year. After him, let's see. Ooh, Carson Schwessinger's up to 10. He is tied with Drake Thomas. Think about that. Think about the fact that Carson Schwessinger is like one of the people that people are talking about for defensive rookie of the year. He has started 12 games this year. Every game, he's got 1.5 sacks and 10 tackles for loss. And Drake Thomas also has 10 tackles for loss, and he has 3.5 sacks, and he has 6 quarterback hits and 6 passes defensed. So Drake Thomas is 25, in case you were curious. And he's done all of that in 9 official starts. So, I mean, that guy is a beast. I love having him on the team. I love watching him play. I love how he shoots gaps. This is something where I'll have to have Griff Sturgeon back on, because I know he and I see linebackers differently, and he's not a Drake Thomas fan. And he's a huge Jordan Brooks fan. I was always like, Jordan Brooks is a good player. Does Jordan Brooks make enough impact plays? And Griff's point was always that impact plays are a small fraction of the overall snaps that any player is going to play. And so you want your defender to be good the whole game, not just making a few flashy plays. I actually agree with that. I also believe that making impact plays are a pretty big part of how you stand out and how you win football games. And Drake Thomas, that guy makes more impact plays at linebacker than almost any Seahawks linebacker in the last 10 years. Like, he fires his gun into the backfield and he trusts his eyes and he's done the film study and he is back there making big plays that sets an offense behind schedule. And he also gets sacks and he also is a good coverage backer that has a lot of passes defensed. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to fight it. I think he's a very good player. I love having him on the team. And for what it's worth, which might not be much depending on your perspective, he had a 90.7 PFF grade yesterday. That's all pro level. He had a 75.8 coverage grade, an 85.3 pass rush grade, and an 80.4 run defense grade, all while getting an 80 grade for tackling. That's pretty good. Like I'm not gonna tear the guy down at that point. And now it's got me curious. Where is he in overall ranks among linebackers in PFF grade? Probably still down the list. I don't know. Where is he on here? So he's only got a 69.8 overall grade from PFF. Okay, fine, whatever. I love what we're getting from Drake Thomas, and as I look, I'm just looking at one other thing here to see if there's anything interesting. Whatever. But really, really good grade from him yesterday. Who led the Seahawks in their PFF grade? DeMarcus Lawrence, 95.5 PFF grade. That is an insane PFF grade. And then you had Drake Thomas at 90.7. Then you had Ernest Jones at 81.8. Then you had Leonard Williams at 74.9. Then you had Devin Witherspoon, 70.3. Boye Mafe, 69.4. Ty Okada, 69.3. Kobe Bryant, 68.3. Josh Jobe, 62.3. And then as far as guys that didn't play as well, Brandon Peely didn't have a great grade. Mike Morris did not have a great grade. Nicky Manwari did not have a great grade. And he actually got by TJ Hawkinson on one of the only big plays that the Vikings did get on the day. So that's on offense. On defense, that was on defense. On offense, Zach Charbonnet had a 90.6 grade. That's excellent. Cody White had an 84.8 grade. Abe Lucas, 76.6 grade. He had his better grade as a run blocker, 79.5. AJ Barner's 76.1. Kenneth Walker, 75.5. And then you had JSN at 62.5, Charles Cross at 62.5. He did have an 81 pass block grade. And then you drop all the way down to who had really bad games, at least by PFF grading. I told you about Anthony Bradford, 47.3, but he did have an 80.2 pass block. He was 38.6 run block. So the run block grade, not good. Gray Zabel, 47.0 grade. He had a 42.8 pass block grade and a 49.2 run block grade. PFF does not like Gray Zabel for some reason. Robbie Utes did not grade out well, 46.1. Christian Haynes, 42.9. Told you he was lower than Anthony Bradford, but he did have a 76.2 pass block grade, 43.4 run block. And then Sam Darnold had the lowest grade of any Seahawk, 37.9 grade. Not a great game for Sam Darnold. And you know, that's what PFF has to say. At the same time, the Seahawks did return to being the number one overall DVOA team over there by FTN Fantasy. They take back over that trophy from the Rams. Their offense is the 7th ranked DVOA offense. Defense is 1st. Special teams is 2nd. Passing offense drops to 2nd. They had been 1st for a long time, but this was not a good performance. They dropped to 2nd. Rushing offense is 20th, so that's a little bit of a step back. Pass defense 2nd. Rush defense 1st. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. So good stuff there. And speaking of DVOA, how dominant was the Seahawks offense? This was the 30th, sorry, let's try that again. 30th worst DVOA game ever. Even adjusting for how good the Seahawks defense is. It was 30% worse than any other Vikings game. So this was the Vikings' worst offensive performance in their history by DVOA. And then it was also the 30th worst of all time for all the thousands of games. So that's pretty remarkable. Good stuff from the Seahawks defense. And I think that covers a lot of what I had here. I think there was a couple other things that showed up. Can we please skip the commercials? I mean, if you have YouTube Premium, you can. If you're talking about the ones where I'm reading off, no, you can't. And brother's got to make a living, and that's part of how I make a living. So appreciate you guys for not being harsh about that. Try to get you guys the best deals possible and also do good things around the community. So let's see. Got this from Mike Newell. Happy to be here, Brian. Thanks for staying positive. The team is 9-3. I love that. Let's get up a little earlier. I think there was some Anthony Bradford hate going on. Want to make sure I'm being honest about all that's out there. Well, here's something about Jalen Milroe from Brian Myers. Milroe inactive as emergency quarterback every week. Only see him if both quarterbacks getting hurt. Yes, that is true. And I don't think it's a problem. I think that Jalen Milroe was drafted to be a developmental quarterback, and he's going to get a chance to develop. And I don't think that's a big deal. Let's just see. I know I saw some other stuff. This is from Mike Newell again. Football is far from perfect. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Yep, that is true. Here's one from Luca. It says, any update on the Jalen Milroe package other than the obvious run plays? No, I think they've pretty much shelved it, is kind of how I see it. And I don't think that's a problem. Let's see. Yeah, I don't want everyone just listening to dead air, so I'm going to leave it probably at that. I think there's another super chat that came in while I was doing that. OEL says, didn't Nicky Manwari get called for a personal foul when he suplexed Justin Jefferson? He did. And I was like bummed at that point because he had made a really nice play and he did the Brandon Browner. And, you know, everyone gets one suplex and the personal foul, and then hopefully he learns from it. It was a bummer. It's also a bummer that that's a penalty. It is a penalty, but it's a bummer that's a penalty because it was kind of a badass play. But honestly, I don't think that he even really heard the whistle. And so I think he was playing through the whistle. I don't think it was meant to be dirty or anything, but it is what it is. All right, folks, we're going to call it there. We're over an hour in. I will be at the VMAC later today to talk to Mike Macdonald. Tomorrow we'll be back with Matt Hasselback for our Tuesdays with Matt. Until next time, make sure. Oh, wait, one more thing. I think someone gave us a 5-star review, and I always like to give people some recognition on that because it makes my day and appreciate it. So this one comes from J May Rock You. Says, great Seahawks content, best guest, most detailed Hawks pod. Well, appreciate you, man. Appreciate that. If you can leave us a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'll love it. We're gaining every day on Spotify, so great to have you there as well. All right, everybody, that'll do it for this edition of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Have a great rest of your Monday. Take care.